Turn it up.
From the YBA Phenix Fitness 24/7 basketball facility in Rocklin, California, it's Bout That Life Podcast with your host, Coach C. Collins and Coach MJ.
3, 2, 1, go.
Hey, welcome to Bout That Life Podcast. I'm your host, Coach C. Collins. Thank you again for listening, checking it out. If you have been following and been with me on this journey for a while, it's always appreciated. If you're new to listening to this, hopefully you enjoy the show. Again, do that HBO special, help a brother out, hit the follow, hit the like, share it if you feel so inclined. But if you don't, hey, still stay and listen, get this free game. Let me hopefully break down how, your basketball, your AAU journey, even like I said, things in life could help you be better to achieve your goals. So again, always appreciate the support for those that have been listening. So I want to give a quick shout out to my sponsors. Quick shout out to Dr. Dish, best shooting machine on the market. They have the All-Star, the Rebel, the Home Edition. I suggest you go check them out, look their website up, tell them Bout That Life sent you. They'll hit you up, they'll get you a discount. They've been a supporter of my podcast for the last year now, and I use their machines. I got 5 of them in my facility right now. So would definitely tell you it's if your kid is looking to get a bunch of shots up, improve their shooting ability, and have a machine that's reliable, definitely go check them out. Also, quick shout out and plug for Hardwood Palace. If you're looking for AAU tournaments, rec level, high level all the way to the lowest level to just your starting point, Hardwood Palace is the right place for you. Talk to Grant or Steve. They'll hook you up, tell them Bout That Life sent you. But no, definitely a good place to check out. It's in Rocklin, California, right next to my facility and studio. So again, if you're in that Sacramento area, Rocklin area, even if you're from out of town, come check Hardwood Palace out and they'll hook you up and take care of you. So with all that being said, let me get to my guests. I have had the fortunate side of getting introduced to this man through social media, but at the same time, really through Marcus Kirkland. He put us all like in a group text, and I was able to kind of connect with him and see his journey. Yep. And I've been trying to get him on the show for a while, but he's been traveling and working hard, and I respect it because I know how hard that grind can be. And you guys know as well, with this show, I'm always trying to get you guys guests and people that, not only in the just play hoop, but are in this basketball space of ours, this ecosystem that we've created, whether it be the content creation, the media side. Again, you guys know who've been rocking with me for a while. Johan, my producer, is a former basketball player who's now created his media company. Like, it's so many avenues and ways you can be successful other than just being on the basketball court. And that's what I always want to try to illustrate by bringing in different guests for you guys. So, we're going to get into who he is, how he got into his space, what his aspirations are, his journey, his quick testimonial, if you want to call it that. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the usual stuff that we love to talk about, what's new in the basketball world and what to expect. But without further ado, let me introduce Michael Wadsworth. I want to make sure I said Michael Wadsworth, a.k.a. Mike Cuts.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on the show. No problem, man. So let's get right into it. I want people to know who you are, and always, as always, I will have links for his Instagram and his social media in the description in the bio. So for sure, if you're checking out the show, especially after you listen to the show, go follow him, go support him, go help him grow in his journey as well. But, let's get right into it. Let's, talk about your basketball journey, whether it's AAU, high school, collegiately, professionally, and everything else in between. What's your basketball journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I started kind of my basketball journey, at least AAU wise, and playing competitively in Ohio, where AAU scene is a little bit different over there. It's more city by city. So I was kind of like playing on my city, Dublin, and then we were traveling to other cities, which was really cool. But when I moved to California, AAU scene was a little bit different. Anyone and everyone could kind of enter an AAU team into the tournaments and whatnot. So I started playing, local feeder AAU teams, playing kind of just for different AAU programs. So AAU was a big part of kind of my basketball journey growing up. Ended up going to a local high school, local junior college, Sac City for 2 years. really important part of kind of just my development. I think junior college was really good for me. And then 2 years at a Division III school, Cal Lutheran. Ended up trying to go play pro in Spain after that. That summer I was over there, tore my meniscus, came back, got surgery, ended up actually kind of getting into remote like software tech sales. I was in corporate life for a little bit, and then I moved down to Orange County, started interning for Jordan Lawley, a well-known trainer out there, and then just started kind of getting more in the basketball world, connecting with the right people, continued just to, not just cut hair, but also train there and, start making content, and that's where we're at.
All right, good. So then let's get right into it. So, I always ask this of my guests, usually always my first question, being removed out of AAU basketball, so to speak. Obviously, you're not playing it, but you know what I'm saying? You guys, you get to kind of have the outside look, right? From the outside in, and obviously have gone through that process yourself. What is your thoughts, pros and cons with AAU basketball where it sits today in 2024?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good way of putting it, kind of looking at it from the outside in, because most of the stuff in terms of AAU, probably stopped playing myself in 2014. It's now 10 years later. So what I'm seeing is from the outside, doing individual skills training and talking to these kids, asking about what programs they're a part of, what that looks like and the structure and stuff. But do kind of get a view from the outside in. And I think what I'm seeing more, just as AAU trends a little bit, is a lot more games, a lot more social media hype.
Yep.
Which, can be good or bad. So I'd say, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, I think AAU, if it could kind of go more towards maybe not the full European style, but somewhere in between where we're getting more practices, more development for the players, but at the same time, making sure you're getting enough reps and getting to play out there, whether it's pickup or AAU, just tournaments. I think that's also important. So finding that good balance between the two, I think, is important.
Okay. Is there like a major, I guess, negative you would say that, it's just something that proactively maybe needs to, be looked at or be fixed in this AAU machine that we have right now?
I don't know if I know the exact perfect solution to get AAU to where it needs to go. I think it's kind of a lot of it with just the way, money in the world is built. It's kind of become a business and a corporation, which, it is what it is. And that's, you kind of have to go with that. But I would say just if you're starting a program, or if you're a parent and you have a kid in a program, it's just important to look for the right programs, find the right coaches who are going to focus on development and not just tell you, hey, we're going to, be able to do X, Y, and Z for your kid and make big promises and not be able to take you there. I think development is so important, just being patient the whole time. Like we were talking about, there's no one quick fix.
No shortcuts.
No one drill that's going to take you from one level to the next. It's that daily consistency, and I think all that's important. That ties into kind of AAU as well.
Okay, so and I want to circle back on kind of your journey, where you said you tore your meniscus, and obviously having surgery, and I've torn an Achilles, so trust me, I get the thoughts and the kind of the misery you go through, kind of sitting there and letting your body heal and thinking, man, can I ever hoop again, and getting through the mental side of it. But what was able to help you kind of go from that injury and keep going and kind of keep pushing through?
I would say just faith in Jesus, the fact that I think he has a longer term plan for me in basketball. And this was, I guess I tore my meniscus probably 5 years ago, pretty much to the date. 5 years ago, I came back to the U.S. and I didn't know what basketball held, whether I would be ever getting the chance to play again, because I didn't really know what the injury was like. Didn't know, and then COVID happened where, that kind of put a lot of
everything was shut down
and everything was shut down. So I think it's just, it's been definitely an important part of the journey. Never knew how it was going to affect me, but just having faith and kind of hope in Jesus. And I think that's really what got me through it.
All right. And with where you're at now, and in case, again, obviously for my listeners or people, if you guys also don't know what he mentioned it, but if you guys don't know, he cuts hair, and that's kind of his niche, so to speak, outside of like being a hooper. He cuts hairs for NBA guys and do like quick interviews, and he's a content creator on top of being a basketball player, right? Which overall I kind of like this in this current climate where you have a lot of pro athletes having their own podcasts and things like that. And you do, and like Deion Taylor, someone who comes to mind, he's a former overseas pro basketball player, Sacramento guy that's now a movie director and a successful movie director. At that, I like that they can see that athletes, we have more interest than just our sport. Yeah. You know what I mean? But our sport is the catalyst that bridges a lot of these, gaps and helps build these relationships, right?
Absolutely.
So let's take that pivot and talk about, what got you into cutting hair and, what kind of gave you the idea of like, I'm going to, go cut NBA guys' hair and, make my content and keep going from there.
Yeah. Cutting hair, it's been just a long journey. I started actually at Sac City. A buddy of mine, David, he was coming to practice every day and he had a fresh cut. Probably, I never saw him with a not fresh cut. So I asked him, I was like, do you go to the barber? Like, how do you go like 2 or 3 times a week? And he was just laughing and kind of said, like, I cut my own hair.
Okay.
And seeing that it could be a fresh cut, you could do it yourself. I started learning from him. He kind of taught me a few things. And then when I really got to Cal Lutheran, I had my dorm there. And it was kind of a fake it till you make it sort of scenario. Where I was telling everyone, hey, I'm a big time barber. But really, I just
learning
it up. But I learned from just practice. And then doing that kind of, took me down the road. At first, while I'm posting content, it was before and afters, just like transformations of haircuts. Yeah. And then once I started doing the basketball training and cutting people on the basketball court, I was talking to another buddy of mine, Pat, and he was we were just having a great conversation in the chair, talking about, he does a lot of overseas ball, so we're just having a really deep conversation in the barber chair, and he's like, you got to be recording these things.
Right.
So I started just recording them and throwing stuff out there and seeing what worked. And it's definitely changed overall, in terms of being, started off maybe more so as a podcast, and now it's more quick clips. But I think you're right. Everyone has their niche, and just whether it's, doing media or creating content or coaching or training, there's so many avenues you can do with basketball. And I think it's just important to find what interests you and go after it.
Yeah. I've been watching your content for a while, but like, I thought it was really cool when you've had chances and opportunities to do those quick interviews with the NBA guys or WNBA and just, have those candid conversations, you know what I mean? So I definitely suggest, if you guys are listening or checking this out on YouTube, go look at his stuff. It's actually pretty cool. It's really innovative. And I feel like you're in your own lane. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's necessarily doing what you're doing. Obviously we live in a day and age, a lot of people are creating content, but I'm saying you found a unique area that's specific for you, which is really cool.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Overall, for the basketball side of it, right? For you still playing, because you still hooping, you still active. I see the videos, man. So you still doing your thing out there. What aspirations, goals do you have for yourself when it comes to the basketball aspect side?
The core of my love for basketball comes from hooping, whether that's, playing games, playing pickup, 3-on-3, 5-on-5, training. I love all aspects of it. So continuing to stay in the game as long as I can is definitely important. Just this last weekend, I got a chance to try out with a couple different G League teams.
Nice.
So I was training going to that. And my favorite part about that was really just the training going into it, because I just love that aspect of it. But I don't know what the future is going to hold for basketball, whether it's more so on the content side, probably more so than on the playing side. But I just love to be around the game, love the people you can meet, like, Chris here or other, hoopers or influencers or whatnot. I think I like being around the game. So that's kind of my main focus.
No, that's great, man. Have you ever thought, well, like you've been training and stuff, have you ever thought of coaching?
I think, I love and I have a lot of respect for the coaches who do the team coaching. I definitely find myself having more of a passion for the individual skills coaching, whether it's the skills training or even just kind of tying in, sport performance, lifting sort of stuff into the individual level. I like to see the individual person grow and see what they can do. So I don't know. I've never really coached a 5-on-5 team, but I'm sure one day it'll happen.
Yeah, trust me, you got plenty of time. Yeah. You also did the 3-on-3, the big three, right? You were doing that stuff. Yeah. So talk about that. How that whole experience, how'd you feel about that? Looking back, like, I'm sure you enjoyed it, but yeah, talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's actually a crazy story how I even got into the Big Three Combine. I started out, I was playing in this league in LA, the Surgeon League, and I'm playing with this Team Tilt, and we're playing well in this LA league, and somehow we got invited to this Big Three street tournament in Seattle. So he takes Team Tilt, we take 6 players out there. We go to Seattle. It's just kind of the smaller tournament.
Yeah.
It's at a sneaker con in Seattle. And we ended up getting to the championship. I had a game winner in one of the games, and I connected with the right people from the Big Three and kind of just saying like, hey, what's it take to get in the Big Three? Ended up from there getting an invite to the combine where I started training.
Yeah.
Got out there and was really happy with how I played. Didn't end up getting drafted. It's a super competitive league.
Yeah.
A lot of great hoopers out there, but it was just a cool experience overall.
And when you were doing the combine, you know, the tryouts and whatnot, I'm sure there was a lot of like, you know, former pro athletes or, you know, like how competitive would you say, you know, it was it, I mean, because I think some might think like, because I remember when, you know, we first got the idea, or when the Big Three first came, you know, some people were kind of skeptical, like, oh, they're just joking around or anything. But no, I know as someone who hoops, like, no, these dudes are competing. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, are guys in their prime? No, but they're still, you know, they do have passion for this. You could see it as, you know, a basketball player watching other basketball players. But for the casual, for the person that might not know this, I would say maybe you could speak to them and tell them how competitive and serious it is.
It's serious. And like you said, it's very competitive. These are ex-NBA dudes, ex-pro guys. So their athleticism might not be to what it once was, though it's still, you know, beyond mine. They still have the skill. They can still shoot. They have the IQ. They're big. They're strong. So it's legit. Everything about it is legit. And, you know, they're training for this combine too. They want to get out there too. So I think it's very competitive. Yeah, a lot of ex-NBA dudes, but, you know, a lot of hoopers out there.
How important has it been for you and your success as far as networking? You know what I mean? I know I talk about that on the show, especially for when I have guys like yourself on the show who are content creators. Like I said, Zacchaeus was one, Marcellus, you know, Deion Taylor, just a bunch of different guys I've had who are in this space, not only, you know, still hooping, keeping their bodies in shape, but also, again, you know, creating and building a network. How important has that been for you in your success?
Very important. I think a network is very important. I think where I really got skills from that is actually, I was talking about, I worked in the corporate sales world. And in there, you're making 100 cold calls a day and reaching out to 100 people, and you might get heard back from 5, 10 people, if that.
Right.
So just kind of using that same drive, that same sense, whether you're a high school kid reaching out to colleges for recruiting, if you reach out to 100 schools, you might hear back. In the same way, I still try and do that, reaching out to people and use that as a network just to kind of create connections, see what's out there, and not really being afraid of rejection or getting left, you know, on red in the DM on, you know, a potential opportunity or something. I think all that kind of ties in, I think, but networking is absolutely huge when it comes to it.
When you worked with, because you mentioned J Law, right, and working with him, and obviously for those in SoCal and most likely all over California, they know who he is. He's a big time trainer out there, and if you're listening from another state, you look, just type his name up. You'll see. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen videos and stuff, but you know, having his support, you know, meeting him, working with him and the people and the network he has access to, you know, how supportive has he been in your journey and maybe helping provide those opportunities for you?
That's been huge. That's probably been the biggest catalyst of it all. I was actually introduced to J-Law by someone who I had met 2 years previously in Spain, right? I was injured. I tore my meniscus, and I met someone who connected me with J-Law kind of like right when I moved out there. And he's been huge, not just kind of in, like you said, you know, connecting with the right people to meet the right people, but just in believing in you and letting me put not too many other trainers let you just put a barber chair
no doubt,
let you cut hair and talk to players. Like, been so supportive and so open and just believing in me and what I can bring to the table, I think has been the biggest thing, just that encouragement and that belief in you.
That's great. No, when you've, because, you know, part of your content, you're cutting these NBA guys' hairs and having conversations with them and stuff like that. Has overall your experience when meeting most of these guys been overall positive?
So much so more positive than I would have thought.
Okay.
Like you were saying, every person, there's a human behind the player.
Yes.
And like, once you get to know them and sit with them in a barber chair or whatever, they're very open to talking about what their life, what they ate that day, just random, you know, things that go on in their life. And most of the time they're not stuck up or anything like you'd think. I mean, I've had 1 or 2 run-ins or anything.
Yeah, I mean, people are, I try to express that on this show, like, you know, like I said, the human side, right? And of some people are jerks, or some people just might have a bad day, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, I like to think and see the best out of most people.
I agree. That's what I found most. Yeah.
Yeah. Then is there been a particular story, or even before I go to that, what's like the logistical side of it, of what you're doing, right? Because you're traveling a lot, you're up and down all over the West Coast, right? And kind of, again, like you wake up 7 a.m., 6 a.m., okay, get my breakfast, whatever, my workout in, drink my coffee, get to work. Like, what does it look like on a day-to-day basis for you?
Yeah, and especially this summer is probably a good example. It's a little bit more busy in the gym and the barbershop in the summer, so I would say, wake up maybe 7 a.m. I got a couple golden retrievers, so I'll take them out. Play with them.
Okay.
Then I usually get to my own workout, kind of just focus on that. Maybe it's 9 a.m. or so by the time I get back, eat some sort of breakfast, head to the gym. It's maybe go there from like 10 till 2 or 3, where I'm either training, cutting hair, filming, doing some sort of content, just rebounding for players, whatever's needed. Come back, eat some sort of lunch, maybe get into some, editing, just editing the content, get that out there. And then, changes from day to day. But that's a pretty typical day, focused on that. Maybe an hour during the day, I'm focused on reaching out to other people, future guests or people I can connect with or collaborate with. So that's a pretty typical day.
Yeah. And like you said, now you're on the interview side today. So that's a nice change of pace. I only got a couple more questions before we move into our other segments. So I know we alluded to, as far as, just kind of seeing how things manifest and, seeing what the future unfolds for you. If you had, so I want you to speak to the youth that's listening to this right now, listening or watching it on YouTube or whatever. Let's say they have an interest like yourself. They look at kind of you and they go, man, I want to do that. I want to hoop. I want to cut hair. I want to maybe try to network and talk to people and do what Mike's doing. What are 2 or 3 pieces of advice or key things you think they need in order to be successful?
I would say, just first off, embrace rejection. Know that people might not like your content at first, or when you reach out to someone, they might not respond to you or laugh at you for putting out content, especially if you're new to it. So I would say embrace that. If it's something you're interested in, just do it and go after it. Mm-hmm. Just put content out there. I think a lot of people are just scared to have the perfect content or scared what other people are going to think. And sometimes I'll find myself when making content, okay, I want to make this perfect, and I'll just have to. Sometimes you just got to put it out there. Yeah. And, they say, what is it? Good is the enemy of great, or whatever it is.
I know what you're talking about.
But I think that's important. And then as a kid, just focus on getting better every day. Some people trying to, until you've kind of found who you are and your identity, don't try and, make too much content about specific things. Maybe just improve yourself as a basketball player, as a person. Make sure you're doing right in school, diets right and stuff before focusing on other things. So focus on the core things, and then kind of whatever you have interest in, and then make content around that.
Okay. It just, content creation has become such a viable market. You know what I mean? It really is very cool from my perspective, just like we talked about earlier, the old man in me, but being able to see anyone has a chance, obviously hitting that lightning and going super viral and getting super famous. I mean, that everyone's not going to get that luck of the draw. Mm-hmm. But the good part about what we do here, everybody gets a chance, right? And that's kind of why I like that premise, because that's essentially how it works in AAU and with basketball. And is everyone going to make it pro or D1 or no? But everybody's got a chance. Yep. You know what I mean? And that's all you can hope for, right? Yeah. Is if you're a parent listening to you and their kids, like, hey, I want to go into content creation. I want to be a basketball player. I want to, like I said, they want to walk the same path as yourself. What advice would you maybe give to parents that are listening, or, 2 or 3 things maybe you might want to give them as a word of advice to help their child find success?
That's a good question. I'd say as a parent, encouragement is always important, setting the right boundaries, making sure your kids are, being respectful in the way they post content and reach out to other people is important. But at the same time, if they're going after something that's important or they're passionate about it, I'd say just encourage it, push it, help them any way they can. And then just as a parent, in terms of AAU ball, be patient with the coaches and the kids. Like we were saying, there's not one drill that's going to take you from a blank, X player to a Z player that quick. It takes consistency. It takes that day-to-day work. So don't put too much pressure on the coach or the kid to the point where you find yourself as a parent stressing out. I feel like, don't try and live through the kids too much, but, focus on development as the player as a whole. And
for you, have your family and friends been really encouraging about, this journey you've been walking on and things like that? How important has having those people in your corner been for you?
Yeah, no, that's very important. I would say, family and girlfriends that, push you and support you when you tell them, hey, I want to go play in Spain.
Yeah.
They're supporting that, even though, they're not sure what the future might hold. When you tell them you want to post content and do this, they're supporting it. I think that's so important, just having the right circle around you, people supporting you. And if people aren't, then maybe you don't have the right people around you. And if you got to do it by yourself, then sometimes you just have to take that up and do it by yourself. But having the right people is definitely a huge key.
When you're making your content, or like you said, when you're editing and doing, are you pretty much like a one-man army doing it yourself, or do you have like a couple people now that, really can help you out? Like I got Joe, he helps me produce all this, as you met, but, like for you, do you have like, is it, a lot of it you doing it yourself, or, kind of you just got a couple people that been backing you up and helping you grow with your brand?
I'd say for the most, kind of just a one-man army in that aspect, which I've enjoyed. And, it takes time. There's a learning curve to learning how to edit, or even just being on a podcast. At first, you're finding your voice and building the confidence in your voice. But as you go through, you'll meet people with different similar passions. They might have, basketball is the main passion, but they do photography or they do media, or you can pick their brain about this or X, Y, Z. So in general, it's me doing the editing and all that, but having people along the way that you can learn from is also huge.
And my last question before we move into hot takes, what do you think of where basketball sits in Sacramento today? Because I'm big on talking about this. Marcus Kirkland talks about this a lot. I think a lot of people in general kind of talk about it, but I think Sacramento basketball, youth-wise, high school-wise, whatnot, it's very talented. A lot of great athletes out here, a lot of kids, busting their ass and working hard and trying to find success. But I do think, Sacramento is still, it's just too divided. It feels so much like everyone's trying to have this independent, individualized, me-centric, mindset of like, these are my kids, this is my program, and I'm big on collaboration. Like you said, no fear of rejection. I've reached out to people, asked them to do this show. Of course, some said no, or, they haven't returned a message or anything. I don't think, even like when I reach out to you, I don't go into it having an expectation that anyone owes me anything, right? I don't think like if I reach out to someone, they like, how dare they not say anything back? They're not obligated to. But if I'm just willing to, again, just try. Right. And worst case, you say no. That's life. You know what I mean? But I think Sacramento has a different mentality in terms of, and obviously, let me narrow it down some. I'm talking about the trainers, the coaches, I don't think it's so much the parents. I don't even think it's so much the kids. I think it's just, we need more coaches and trainers that are willing to work together and collaborate. But I'm just curious your thoughts on where you kind of see Sacramento basketball. And again, it could be in the AAU scene, the professional scene, the high school, whatever you see, just your outlook on it all.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have a different perspective, I'd say, now being out of Sacramento for 3 years, kind of looking back in. I come and I visit pretty often.
Yeah.
Different to see it. But I see what you're saying in the sense where everyone's, I trained this kid, he did this, I trained, I think you can go so much farther as a team and a city than you can alone. And I think that's where it takes people like you coming in and leading and creating the culture and saying, here's how we're going to do things. Just someone just kind of create and lead that to take them along the way rather than everyone else trying to, tear down at one another. But as a whole, when I look back at Sacramento from outside in, when I see players get drafted from here, it's always like, hey, I'm bragging on Sac, I'm bragging on the Kings, no matter what they're doing. Like, I love Sacramento as a whole and love seeing basketball just develop and seeing programs develop, seeing kids come out of here and be successful at the D1 or the professional level. Like, I love that.
No doubt. So let's go into hot takes.
All right.
Okay. So let's talk about the first thing. Of course, we got to talk about the NBA moves they're making there, teams gearing up. Obviously, it's football season right now. So, this is kind of that in-between time for the NBA where guys are either working hard individually or starting their training camps, things like that. But before we get all into that, got to ask you the same thing I ask everybody. Give me your top 5 of all time. Doesn't have to be in order, but your top 5 all time. And then after that, your top 5 currently playing.
Top 5 all time. It might sound like a newer age top 5, just because I have so much respect for this new generation of hoopers and the skill that they have. So in no way am I trying to disrespect the old heads. So I'm not sure what you're going to think of this top 5, but you got to have Steph.
Okay.
Steph at 1.
Yeah,
It's in no order.
there's no argument with that one.
Got to have Kobe in there.
Okay. No argument.
Got to have LeBron.
Yep.
I'm putting KD in that squad.
Okay.
So I got 4. I need one more. I might put Shaq. Shaq at the big man,
so
but
not
even in the big man way, just in the top 5. I say that's on top 5.
So no MJ?
Oh, my God. No. Steph at the 1.
Okay.
Kobe at the 2. MJ at the 3. LeBron at the 5. And then we're putting KD at the 4.
Okay.
Doesn't even have to be a starting 5, but that's my top 5 regardless of position.
Top 5.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And then
that MJ miss was crazy.
Don't worry about it. It happens. There's a lot of talented players. So, okay. So then who's your top 5 actively playing right now? If you had, to pick the top 5.
Okay. I'm going to think about this one.
Take your time. Hey, it's a tough question.
I think Steph's still there.
Okay.
I think Jokic is there.
All right.
I can't not put LeBron, even though it's close, but just everything he brings to the team, he's top 5 right now.
And the numbers don't, obviously his stats speak for themselves.
Yeah.
2 more.
See, this is when you start forgetting players. I know I'm going to be missing 1 or 2.
Maybe, I don't know, Kyrie, Antetokounmpo.
I'm putting Giannis in there. Giannis in my top 5. And hot take, just because I know he's going to have a huge year, De'Aaron Fox. By the time this podcast drops, he's probably already, people are going to be having this conversation.
All right, well, shout out to De'Aaron, man. Shout out, man. Yeah, I was there at his camp when he did it at Harwood. He did the De'Aaron Fox camp here, and I got a chance to, just say what's up to him. I didn't get a chance to really talk to him because he was busy doing a bunch, and he had like security and all that, but I at least got a chance to say hi to him.
That's cool. Was he wearing his new shoes?
No, he wasn't. Not yet, but I think he gave the shoes to all the people that worked the camp.
Oh,
so that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't work the camp. I just was hanging out and stuff. But so no, that was really cool. Okay, so all right, got De'Aaron in that top 5. All right, that's good. And I mean, yeah, the kids improved every year. So, let's talk about the Kings a little bit, right? Malik Monk signed.
Love Malik.
Right, got a great deal. The obviously Coach Brown has transformed the culture of the Kings. Like I said, I was there when Bobby Jackson and Mike Bibby and when they were killing. So like watching that transition into now is pretty cool. What do you overall think the Kings might do this year, or how they might do this year?
I think they're going to have a better year than last year. I'm curious and hopeful for DeMar and how he's going to fit into the team. I think he's one of those guys that can fit into most any role, and he's such a skilled guy.
Yeah.
He's a little bit on his tail end, past his prime, but that's still DeMar. I know he's going to hit some big shots this year. And I think the Kings as a whole, I could see him winning 5 more games than they won last year, and maybe going, a round or 2 further in the playoffs.
Right.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's always interesting. Obviously in the West is pretty shit, at least from the last 10 years, I can think has always been very strong. Right. Yep. So, it's always a tug of war to see who's really, gonna make it. But in any game, man, any game, any day, it could happen. So when then talking about the Warriors, obviously with Clay being gone, that's going to create a for sure void, but obviously opportunity for other players to step up and maybe see what they're made of. I'm a Warriors fan. So just so I'm a Warriors fan, and then but I'm a true Warriors fan. Like most people know, I was, when we were total dog shit, like for years and years and years, I was still a fan. So like that's who I'm rocking with, who I've been rocking with. But like talking about Steph, with his skill set, I feel like he can be one of those guys that can be in the league for a very long time, because obviously once he gets more to the side where he's not the man and he's not taking as many shots, I make the similar parallel like Ray Allen. Ray Allen transitioned from the Celtics to then when Miami, he was that clutch role player, catch and shoot guy.
Yep.
It's a matter of if Steph is willing to become that, but if he decided to, can you imagine him just strictly just being a catch and shoot guy and all? Like you don't, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to build around. He doesn't have to create his own shot. You pair him up with some young guys, and he's just playing that role. I mean, that he probably excel in that. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, how many more years do you kind of think with these older stars? Like the KD, the Stephs, LeBrons, you know, basically the guys on the Olympic team that were the veterans. How many more years do you think we got with them?
They just keep going.
I know,
they really
right?
do. Like if you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I would have said most of them, especially LeBron, 5 years max.
Yeah.
But like you said, their skill sets are there. They're all very skilled players.
Yeah.
And clearly they're taking care of their body and they're still dominating the league. So I think we could see another potentially 5 years. I don't want to, jinx on him, but potentially 3 to 5 years from each and every one of those guys.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Did you watch, I'm assuming you watched the Olympics this year. You know, I thought the big thing I've been saying, you know, for the last few shows when what the Olympics showed me, which I really enjoyed, is basketball has really become a worldwide loved sport. You know, people like soccer is still number one. Soccer's going to be number one, but you know, basketball is definitely a strong number two now, right? And it was really cool to watch USA win, but obviously even seeing the other countries, how many NBA players there are now, you know, it really has. And like you said, you played overseas, so you get a good gauge of where basketball is. And I think the basketball community is in a really good spot. Culturally, we got to fix some things, but the community is in a really good spot.
I agree.
Do you have any thoughts on that, or, you know, seeing the Olympics and all that, and just, you know, seeing where basketball is today?
I love it. I love seeing it. I think just in terms of what's most fun to play and most fun to watch as a consumer, I don't like watching other sports where they'll make a play and then you're waiting 60 seconds to the next one. Like basketball is up and down. There's scores going on. It's going to be a high scoring game in the triple digits. So I think just the fact that it's fun to watch, each player kind of has their own personality and brings a lot of, that to the game. So I love, like you said, I love where basketball's at, where it's headed, and you could tell it's growing, not just the 5-on-5 game, but I also love seeing the growth of 3-on-3,
yes,
1-on-1. Yes. I just see a little bit more of that. Maybe it's because I'm more in, social media world, seeing more of the 1-on-1 stuff, but you see 3-on-3 as more tournaments and more professional and more money being allocated towards that, and 1-on-1's getting bigger. I think just basketball as a whole is growing, and I love to see it.
And I want to talk about the content space now, with the what I call the new Hollywood, right? The social media is the new Hollywood. Like when I had Zacchaeus on here, we talked about what he's doing. He has like 1.7 million subscribers on YouTube. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's crazy, right? Like, so, and you see these guys, like Deshaun from Last Chance U. I talked to him pretty frequently in just our one-on-one conversations. And he said, me having this media presence and my celebrity and whatnot has helped me to get opportunities to other places, which I overall think is cool. Now, of course, you still got to ball out. You still got to keep your body in shape and still be ready to go, but it's just getting a foot through the door, right? Which I think is great because, some people might hate on that. I think it's great. I think if your media allows you to have an opportunity and you make the most of it, well, I don't see the problem with that, but
I agree.
There's always going to be opposition no matter which way you go with things. I'm with the content creation space, meaning like the ball is life 5-on-5 stuff, the, like you said, the 1-on-1 stuff, the reaction videos, just all of it. What's your overall thoughts on it or your perspective on it?
I love it. I love seeing it. And I'm in that world more, so I see more of it and I connect with more of those dudes, so I see it. But if people are going to be consuming content, it's might as well be basketball and have some humor to it. And, people are going to be on their phones regardless. So let's have it be about basketball and creating content that's positive and uplifting and talking about, what you're passionate about.
Have you ever thought of maybe making a pivot into some of those spaces, like doing the 1-on-1 stuff or the, where like Drifty J, where they go do the 5-on-5s at different parks and all that stuff. Have you thought of trying?
No, I love that. Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be cool to do in the future. I've gotten a chance to play in a couple 1-on-1s. Jesser had like a 1-on-1 for 10K. I ended up losing in the first round, but Dev in the lab, he's had a couple 1-on-1s that I've gotten out to. So I love that space. But yeah, I'd love to do park takeovers or 24-hour fitness takeovers or something. I think those are cool.
The only thing I'll say I don't like in the content space that I'm dealing with that annoys the shit out of me is you got all these guys now making the troll teams where they put them in hardwood, because I'm like, my parents are paying, I'm trying to coach, and they make these fake teams and put them in the actual AAU tournament. Yes, it's happening more and more. Kids are doing it more. And it's like, and Steve and those guys, the directors are trying to nip it in the butt when they can, but a lot of people enroll in these tournaments online. So they just put in the name and the division. So he doesn't necessarily know if it's a real team or some bullshit team. And so he won't know until the day of when they play against like one of my teams. And I'll text Steve like, bro, Steve, this isn't a real team. This is some kids that are bullshitting and playing around.
That's actually hilarious that happens. So do you find it's usually like people who are older, people who just can't hoop and have...
Yeah, it's a combination. Like usually they'll have like maybe 1 or 2 kids who actually hoop and played hoop. And then the rest are just a bunch of their buddies just joking around. Like, I was playing like this. These kids were throwing the ball from half court. It was like, come on, man. Like, are you serious? Because the part where it's tough. It's like, if they're gonna do that, this is what I say, or at least to me the best way. Just tell the director. Just say, hey, this is kind of a joke team. Can you tell the other team, or can you, put us against other people that might be doing the same thing as us? But I get they're trying to get the realism of it. I get that, but it's like, bro, my parents get so mad at it. Like, they're like, what the hell did we just sign up for? Because you got to remember, parents are paying for the tournament. They're paying the entry fee. They're paying, they obviously, they're traveling like that. So they don't want to see this shit.
I believe it. Have you ever found yourself like gone back and saw YouTube and that's what was going on?
No, I have. Well, I heard that's one time one of my teams was like record on I don't know specifically which one. That's what I'm saying. Cause there's so many, there's, younger kids now that are trying to emulate what you guys are doing and create their own channels and stuff like that. But I have heard like, they're like, oh, Coach Chris, I just saw your YBA team on TikTok or all this. I'm like, great, whatever. I don't, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, but I do know it's just one of those things that's annoys me, but I get it. You know what I mean? I get what they're doing.
I get it.
For you. So do you use like basically all social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat? Do you use all those, or which ones are your main ones?
I'd say my main ones are Instagram, TikTok, getting into YouTube. I know the long form is really what people recommend, is like the long form. Most of my stuff's been short form, so I'm trying to get better at that long form stuff. I've tried out TikTok and a little bit of Snapchat. Just haven't found as much success on it. Honestly, even 3 platforms tough. Some people say really focus on 1 or 2. I try and be on as much as I can, just kind of throw it out there and see what works.
And the same for me, like my IG space for sure, doing my Instagram, I'm doing much better than like my YouTube or my TikTok or whatever. Like, of course I'll upload when I can, but I just it's hard enough to figure out the right formula for these algorithms. And like I said, on the IG space, I think I figured out my niche so far, and it's, I've had a few videos, go semi-viral, things like that. And it's usually, again, these podcast clips where I'm just talking, in my opinion, real shit and just telling people like, hey, this is how it goes. So it's kind of cool in terms of, I think I found my way there. For you, which videos of yours have done really successful?
I've had probably one of my first guests. I had Haley Van Lith, USA, 3-on-3 and TCU basketball player. Had her on. So she'd been training for maybe 3 summers at our facility, and I'm getting to train with her and work with her. Love her work ethic, love her mentality. But yeah, one day she was just walking around, asked her to be on my podcast, and a couple of those videos people really liked, which ended up kind of leading to other videos. I was wearing a Kings jersey in that first video, and then the Kings saw it, reached out to me, wanted me to kind of interview some of the Kings. So it kind of snowballed in a way. But yeah, I'd say Haley Van Lith, Mac McClung, and a lot of cool people who've just been really cool to meet and connect with.
No, that but that also made me think like that. Well, I was going to say to you, like, yeah, how did you go about, being able to interview the Kings and stuff? Like you said, they reached out to you and you just kind of set it up, or they just say, hey, come to a practice and talk to these guys? Is that kind of how it all worked?
I was specifically, I was wearing a Kings jersey. It went viral. Someone on the Kings media team just said, like, yo, that jersey's heat, like fire emoji or something. And then for the next 2 or 3 days, I just was spamming the Kings in their comments on my story and tagging them, hitting them on TikTok and Instagram. And finally, someone got back to me. And I saw a DM and they wanted me to come out for media day.
Nice.
And I was just ecstatic, because that's my team,
right?
All that. So it was just cool.
All right. I'm hoping one day. I ended up meeting Mike Brown here. He was at Hardwood watching some games, and I talked to him and someone from the media team. I'm hoping I can get him on the show one day. I hope that could happen.
Yeah,
like,
I love Mike Brown.
I definitely would love to sit with him and talk with, pick his basketball brain apart and how, what he's done to help really motivate these guys. And it's interesting, me watching in the NBA space, because like, I want to say I'm starting to see coaches have to kind of adapt with the changing of the times in terms of, okay, for instance, you have the NIL stuff, right? People, kids, high school kids, college kids can make money now, you know what I mean? And really accumulate a level of fame, and they are their brand, which I think is a good thing. But obviously it can be a tricky thing, right? Because you start wondering, is the passion for playing still at the forefront when money's involved, right? Because that's the business side of it, right? Do you have any thoughts on kind of what you're seeing when it comes to college players making money, high school players potentially making money, just the NIL in general?
Yeah, and you had a good point. I think it's finding, is that person really love the game and that's why they're doing it? Or, it's something they probably would have usually figured out when you get to the NBA, 18, 19, 20 years old. And now people are, having that decision to be made, where they're going to college because of the NIL. So definitely not something I experienced as a player, especially a D3 player. Didn't have, wouldn't have probably had a ton of money coming my way either way. But I think, there's two sides to the coin. Part of me thinks it's great, and then part of me, thinks there could be downfalls to it. So yeah.
No, I worry, but and I've mentioned it on the show, but I worry about, like, one thing in general, player safety, right? You have some of these NIL deals that are ridiculous, like so now you have a kid walking around campus who's a millionaire, then everyone knows it, right? There's certain schools like, well, you've been to so like USC, right? Great campus, beautiful, culture there and everything. But you go a few blocks off of USC, you gonna find out you in the hood very fast. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, imagine you got a player there that publicly is known now. He's getting paid, $4 million, whatever, from his deal. That's where I guess I say I worry, right? Because
I haven't heard that side of it, but that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what kind of a nuance I'm thinking of, because now you have this very publicly aware, wealthy college student just going to school.
Yeah.
And that's where I say, they might not be able to go to school anymore in terms of physically being there, other than like practices and stuff like that. They might have to be online. Then there's a whole nother conversation about, okay, if they're getting this type of money, does school even really matter anymore in terms of, like, let's say they don't have a 2.0 GPA for whatever reason. Like, are you then going to not have this kid play or this young adult play? Like, it does get kind of a tricky area, right? Right? Because now essentially they are employees. You know what I mean? Like, and now you gotta, so now maybe you do fines, or you have to incentivize more so than, oh, you don't come to practice, you don't play in a game. Well, they're like, well, so what? I got my bag. I'm gonna go cry in a bag of money. Like, they, you know what I mean? They don't, it's all these nuances that I think people, like, I'm sure these questions are being raised in the right offices and shit, but this is just kind of stuff I think about on my own and talk about it on the show. How often have you been traveling to do a lot of the things you do? Like, are you, is it pretty much week to week, or are you always kind of just in one area for a little while and then another area next, for a few weeks or whatever? What's your travel schedule like?
I'm kind of more of a homebody. I like staying at home a lot and getting my routine there. But this summer, I've been traveling a little bit just to the Big Three Combine and then to San Diego for that G League tryout. And now was in San Francisco, now in Sacramento. So a little bit of traveling. And I am actually going to be doing some traveling this NBA season. I'm trying to go to potentially every arena or every stadium in the year.
Very cool.
Doing kind of like a cool partnership with that, with Today's Sports. We're going to be trying to so definitely going to be doing a lot more traveling. But I wouldn't say it's necessary in the content game. You can be at home making it. You can kind of do reaction videos and make it. So it's really up to you. But I have got an opportunity to travel and do some cool stuff like that.
Nice. So I want to circle back to the NBA. Kind of the big thing, another thing that's talked about right now, just getting your take and opinion on it, especially because you're in that training world, is, nepotism is the big word right now, especially obviously to the pinnacle degree of it being looked at is Bronny being on the Lakers. Obviously, they're like, oh, well, clearly his dad wanted that. And overall, I don't have a problem with nepotism, just being honest. Like, I have no problem with parents creating a easier road, or at least opening a door. I shouldn't say creating an easier road, but opening a door for their children. Like, I have no problem with that. But, that's becoming kind of one of the hot takes or arguments. You could say that basketball historically, for sure, to a degree, it was always that movie story that, you were a kid from the trenches, a kid from the mud that worked your butt off and made it to the league somehow, that kind of happy ending story. But now basketball has become more kind of a bit of an elitist sport in terms of you got to have at least some money to play this sport. It's not free. Yeah, you can go out there and play pickup for free, but let's be real, you're not going to be able to compete with the guys that really do this. So even for me in the business of, like, you're sitting in the damn facility, you see it yourself. But you have like the Carlos Boozer twins. You have Gilbert Arenas' son. You have Carmelo Anthony's son. Like, these guys are some of the best in the nation. And of course, they're just like, well, it's easier for them. Like, they got, their dads were this and they got access to this. I was lucky enough to have Andre Stojakovic on my show before he went to his McDonald's All-American game. And we talked about that with his dad and things like that. And I think his dad was just inducted into the European Hall of Fame not too long ago. Yeah. So, yeah, man. So I'm just saying, in a long-winded way, but just saying your thoughts on kind of that aspect of it. People, maybe some people say it's, it is what it is. Who cares? Just compete, get better. Or some people say, oh, that's not fair. They're getting steps ahead and nods that we don't get. Like, what would be your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't mind it too much in the same way. I think as someone, as a parent, you probably want to see your kids do better than you did and set them up for success in that. The LeBron situation is different just because he's LeBron. Like, I really think no matter how good Bronny was, like, he really could get there just because that's LeBron.
Yeah.
Different in the situation. In terms of kind of the, Boozers and Anthony, I think a lot of it, I wonder, like, it'd be interesting to have a conversation. Is it a lot more the fact that, these are all-time athletes and they, their genes? It probably also has to do with the fact that they have, money for skills training and know which areas to develop in their kids. But I think, especially in the NBA, it's like, whether it's nepotism or not, it's about connections. Not all about that, but having connections and having that network is important. So whether it's kind of you're related to someone or the right people, I think a lot of that's involved either way. So, yeah.
Okay. And my last hot take, talking about this specific NBA player, I don't know if you saw any of the photos or videos. It just stood out to me, and I felt I wanted to talk about it. Was Zion Williams. He's really transformed his body this year. I don't know if you saw that. Like, what are your thoughts on him? Or maybe, do you think maybe this might finally be a year he can get through a season and really, I mean, the guy's talented. There's no doubt about that. But he's definitely, he's definitely kind of one of those players that you're like, fuck, we just want to see you get through a whole season. You know what I mean? Like a Joel Embiid, or, you know, like just let's see what you really can do. What do you think about that?
Now, I love Zion's game. So exciting. And yeah, like you said, we're all rooting for him. We want to see these crazy dunks, these alley-oops, these posters, these blocks that we've been seeing ever since high school, Duke, and then, you know, his early years. And, you know, when he's in there, he's a dominant force.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we just want to see him get through the year. So I have seen him kind of thinned out. It sounds like maybe he's, you know, taking it all seriously, taking the diet and all that seriously. So if that's the case, it's going to be scary. But, you know, we'll see. Sometimes players in the offseason, you'll see pictures of him. You'll see Luka, and he looks all thin, and he comes back in the season. He's right back to the regular he was. So James Harden, same thing. But, yeah, interesting to see. I'm definitely rooting for him. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think we all are. I mean, it's always tough. And as hoopers, and that's the thing. Like, part of why I created this show is because I want the casual fan, or even people that didn't play but really enjoy the sport, to understand our perspective, because players' perspectives, or guys who play the game, are so different than everybody else's. You know what I mean? I want to move on into my respectfully disrespectful segment. Let me see if I got that kicked. Yeah. And so let's see. So talking about in our respectfully disrespectful segment, you know how this is the big thing I want to address, and obviously just get your perspective, whether you know, firsthand know or not. Dealing with crazy ass parents. It's just parents being crazy, and maybe having, you know, like arguing with guys who are coaching their kids. I remember I told you before the show, like even me and Jamal Crawford sat and talked, and Jamal made a very, very eloquent, interesting take on it that went viral, you know, talking about, he was like, he basically, I'm summarizing, but he just said, you know, the first problem in AAU is with the parents. Straight up. He just said straight up, it's with the parents. Do you got any input or any thoughts on that, on just, you know, the parent culture in terms of the negative side of it, obviously, because there's great parents too. Let me not discredit that. I have great parents. I've had very good parents, but I've also had crazy ones. I've also had the negative side of it. What are your thoughts on kind of that side of all that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, in my position, I'll hear more parents venting to me about it rather than, you know, complaining about it. Or I'll be like cutting their kid in the barber chair, and they'll be telling me a situation of their AAU team. Oh, this, that, or the other. So I'll get to hear it from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. I think there's so many, and it's generalizing, of course, but like parents, I think just as a whole, sometimes can put so much pressure on their kids for basketball. I've seen kids who their parents will move them out from different states, and they'll be training, and then they won't like their trainer, and they'll move them to a whole nother area. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, how much pressure the kid has to have, knowing that their, you know, whole family's dynamics are changing just kind of for basketball. Like even just every shot, I'd be thinking about it, honestly. So I think finding that balance as a parent between supporting and encouraging your kid while still, you know, not putting too much pressure on them. Because at the end of the day, if the kid doesn't want to do it, they're either not going to be putting in the work, or they're going to get to that level and be miserable, or it's just not going to be happy in the long run. So it's probably tough as a parent. I'm not a parent, so one day it's probably like a whole nother inner battle, because every parent like knows their kids. So it has to be some sort of inner battle that I'll probably face one day. But from the outside in, you have to think like, just do what's best for your kid. Don't put too much pressure. Just support them and encourage them.
You know, with the training side of it, what would you recommend that, you know, because I talk big on this show when it comes to parents and kids using discernment, right? You got to use discernment when you're picking your trainers, when you're picking your shooting coach, your basketball coach, all these things, just like in life. I mean, that's a life thing. You got to use discernment on like who's a good person to be around, who's not. Like that's just life. Mm-hmm. But for you, what would you recommend for, you know, parents and kids to look for when they're trying to pick a trainer, when they're trying to look for someone to help work with their young, you know, themselves or the parents' young athlete? Mm-hmm. What are some qualities maybe they should be looking for?
Yeah. And I like the word you use, discernment, because I think that's important in all aspects of life, but especially this, when you're choosing someone to kind of coach and develop and take your kid from a journey of not a skilled basketball player to where you want him to go. I think that's really important. But I would say first and foremost, if a coach is telling you something that sounds too good to be true, sometimes just take it with a grain of salt. if they're saying they could take your kid, take your kid to the next easy D1 town without even seeing your kid,
Right.
be wary of that. I'd say that's an important thing. Yeah, that's kind of what I would add to that.
Okay. No problem. It's ain't
But
no
I
wrong
would
answer.
also actually add, like, look for a trainer that you get along with, respect as a person, and trust them as a person as well. If it's a trainer and they're BSing you, or they're even with something, they're not good with money, or had an issue with that. Like, everything is important when it comes to like respect and the culture they're building. So if it's not something you would want your kid to be emulating, their attitude and everything, don't send them over there. But find the people who really are going to develop your kid in the right way.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, I'm big on just trying to tell, because like my style of coaching, I'm a crazy ass aggressive coach. Like, that's just the old school in me. But I always tell parents I'm respectful and I'm fair and I'm objective, right? Even I can be in a game, my star player sucks. It ain't your game. You got to sit your ass on the bench.
Yeah.
This kid, bro, who might be my 11th man, is somehow having the game of his life. Hey, cheer him on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there is no. That's the biggest thing I hate when I hear when parents try to say like, oh, there's favoritism. I say, like, look, man, most coaches that I know typically want to win, right? Yeah, when I'm guilty. If I'm in the game, I want to win. Now, development is still always important to me. That's always at the forefront. But, is there times where I have to sacrifice the quote unquote development, or what could potentially develop the kid to try to get the win? Well, yeah, I might have to do that. If we're in LA or Vegas and we're playing in some national championship tournament, yeah, okay, I got to shorten the bench up. I got to go with the guys who've proven and have done this, and you know what I mean? Like, that's what I try to tell parents. When you're paying for youth sports, you are paying for the experience of the sport, like the experience of the sport. You're not paying for playing time. You're not paying for, priority. You're saying, okay, I'm going to pay for this tournament, pay for this practice time, and pay for your services as a coach. That's essentially what you're paying for. But you're not paying to guarantee your son has 30 minutes a game. Yeah. Right. So that's the distinguish I try, the what I try to establish right away when I'm coaching my teams. Right. Have you ever heard stories, or has any of your parents or anyone vent to you or talk to you about kind of some of the downsides of AAU, or the corrupt side, people taking money, or, like you said, saying a bunch of bullshit about, oh, we're going to get your kid here, this is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then they just basically ghost and leave them? Like, I've heard enough horror stories. I'm just curious if you've heard some of these things on your end.
Yeah, I mean, luckily never been on too many crazy AAU stories, but definitely hear something, you're planning on playing for X program and then it falls apart, and you hear through the streets, oh, he just took the money they ever had from him and just left. And you'll hear stories about that. And that's just kind of the world we live in. But luckily never been my AAU experience was really good overall. Had proper, both development and chance to kind of prove myself as well. So luckily never been a part of that, kind of the worst parts of that.
Do you have any coaches or anybody that, or, any coaches or mentors in your mind that, really imprinted on you and helped you become the athlete and man you are today?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, my game is a little unconventional. I play a little bit more flashy, but the coaches who've been able to understand kind of what I can bring to the team have gotten the most out of me. And there's been coaches who really believed in me. One of them was my AAU coach, Coach Jones. He kind of let me play my style of game and push that, as well as my AAU coach, John Florence. He would, I'd be having a bad game shooting. He'd tell me to keep shooting. Just little things like that just show that your coach believe in you. And that they also kind of, I think it's important as a player for me that I respected the coach. That was the first and foremost, not just respect him as a person, but respect that they can take my game to the next level. Because I've had coaches where I'll go a whole season, don't feel like I got better. And then there's coaches where, okay, I respect, I can tell they know what they're talking about basketball. I'm going to buy into everything they say. I think that's kind of important. With
J Law, because I've seen his social media stuff, for years and stuff. So the facility he has, like, he's always doing, like, from what I can see, is it one court, two courts, or is one court? Yeah, like I see him, I'm always seeing, like, high level open runs and just an influx of very talented people that he's had out there. And well, I know you can only speak, well, you could probably only speak on this to a degree, but for him, you know, where does being around him, where does his passion come from? Like, has he had those conversations with you, and what's motivated him to come in and day out? Because I think a lot of trainers and coaches want to be in that situation. I mean, like I said, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have this space for myself right here. And of course, I always aspired and wanted this, but mine was kind of a combination of luck in the pandemic and just things like that. So I'm just saying, maybe he's from someone who, you know, has been around him for quite a while. Maybe you could speak on where his passion comes from.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for him, but just kind of from before I even knew him, I was watching his YouTubes, and kind of, you know, from there you could see what motivates him, and it's similar. I know he's driven by faith, but I would also say just from being next to him and seeing, you know, what his passions are, is just the human right there. Like, he's, you know, cares about the person. He wants them to develop, not just in basketball, but in life, and he just builds a great culture with a positive attitude. Like, you're not going to hear too many curse words or negative statements from him or, you know, people in the gym, just because that's the tone he sets. And so I think that has to be what drives him, is just like developing each person and caring about each person individually, whether it's 6-year-old kid or, you know, Klay Thompson, you know, like one of the better players that we have. So that,
Do you have a perspective on people or trainers or, you know, yeah, I'm just saying, like, trainers that big time people where they act like they too good for this or that, or, you know, like, you treat the janitor the same way you treat the CEO. That's my philosophy. That's how I live by. I know everybody don't live by that way, and that's okay. That's them. But that's part of why I create this platform and this show, because I'm going to vent my opinions on that shit. I think every human deserves respect. Yeah. Until they obviously disrespect you. Then you know, at that point is whatever. Yeah. But, you know, have you ever experienced, or have you ever been in maybe some of those situations where you felt like, oh, this dude's big? And of course, you know, I'd say who. I ain't worried about who, but I'm just saying that what are your thoughts on people that react in that way or do things like that?
Yeah, like I said before, I think most people have surprised me in how open they've been and how genuine and just cool of a person they've been. When it comes to trainers that I've met, especially at J-Laws, you'll see most people, even the top players in there, just with a very humble attitude, and it just adds humility to my own self to think like, hey, if we've got all-stars in here who are chatting it up with everyone, then how could I, you know, not be just as humble, if not more humble? So I think I don't run into too many. I know trainers who, you know, they're big dog each other, and I'll run into trainers who their initial thought, they'll say like, oh, how'd he get this player? He blah, blah, blah. And a lot of kind of like talking trash and stuff. I try and stay out of that, but just being around the right people who are going to uplift each other and kind of go together as a team rather than, you know, pick at each other, I think is important.
And I love that you spoke, you know, you speak about your faith, you know, and how that's helped guide you and help motivate you. Cause I have that as well. You know, that's a big thing for me as well. And, you know, I just count my blessings every day I can, right? Like, good to go from, you know, I tore my Achilles, for instance, when I was I was 36 at the time. And so it was, you know, it wasn't like I was just playing at a Destiny Church at their men's league or whatever. And I just got a steal, made a hard cut, and then boom, that thing just,
Achilles.
And you know, it was 2 years of hell for me, man. Like I took multiple surgeries and got infected. It was pretty rough, man. And like, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to run again, walk again. But now here I am years later, and I'm still hooping, playing in my men's leagues and stuff like that. Now, will I ever be as explosive as I once was? No, but you know, I can play and move and still have my mobility. So again, that's where I say like my faith and counting in my blessings and things like that. So that's what I'm saying. I love that. That's a big part of who you are.
Absolutely.
Through your faith and having it guide you on the things you do. Are there things you've noticed in your life that you would definitely say, you know, God's looking out for you and help, and, you know, giving you some grace?
Oh yeah. Not just grace, but the way he's planned everything, moved mountains just to set up to where I am. I told you, so I met someone in Spain in 2019, And then 2 years later, this just felt like a really God moment, because 2 years later, the day I moved down to Orange County, I reconnect with him and find out he's in Orange County. And then I find out he's training with J-Law, who just so happens to be in Orange County. I didn't even know where he was at. I'd always just followed his YouTube. So like just that in general, just positioning me. And then there's times where I'll just be in the right place at the right time and I'll get on some team, which will lead to another team. Like there's so many times where I won't even take credit for myself. It's just God being in there and putting me in the right scenarios, which gives me hope for the future too, because I don't know what the next 6 months or year is going to look like in terms of content or where I'm going to be or what my career is going to look like. But just knowing that God's got it under control makes me feel a lot better about the situation.
No doubt. And I think I like one or two more questions for you before we get out of here. But, well, because we kind of touched on it a little bit, and I wanted to delve into it just a little more in terms of having your family support.
Mm-hmm.
When you kind of talk to them about, hey, this is kind of something I'm gonna be your venture. What was overall the response, or was it just, were they just like, hey man, we love what you're doing, or did they give you a little pushback, like, are you gonna leave this job? You got a good thing going here. What I mean? Like, how was your family reaction?
I'd say overall support from all of them, but I would say, especially like my dad's a business guy and he wants the best for me in my career. And I was working a really great sales job. There's a lot more lucrative than content creation and podcasting can be. And ended up getting laid off with that. And originally was kind of thinking about getting right back into it. And that's kind of the encouragement I was getting from, especially my dad, kind of, hey, focus on your career and all that. And then as I've gone through and gotten more partnerships and stuff, you'll feel more support. They're saying, like congratulating you on a big partnership where I get to, go out to the NBA arenas or something like that. So overall support. But even when I was going off to play ball in Spain, had some people saying like, hey, maybe you just graduated college, maybe focus on getting a job. But, and then some people saying this is the only time in your life to go after that. You might as well go for it now. So, but in general, just overwhelming support. And even if it's not the exact what I want to hear, I know that they care about me and want what's best for me, and they're just offering their opinion. So,
okay,
yeah, having that support's been huge.
And for people, speak on people that, when we're trying to create anything, that you're going to have people that doubt you. You're going to have haters. You're going to deal with all that. What would you like to say to those maybe looking at what you do, or, watched you when you started to where you're in now, your haters, your people that might think like, oh man, you ain't gonna make it or whatever. What would you like to speak on or say to them?
They honestly, I felt like the underdog my whole life. Growing up, I was undersized. I ended up kind of growing like as I grew older, but I was usually the smallest and skinniest on my team. So the haters, if anything, have just added more fuel to my fire. Mm-hmm. I had coaches in varsity ball. I really like never played much minutes at all. Like people don't know that, but my coach really just didn't mess with my game. Or like I said, I have an unorthodox game that can be hard to fit into certain systems. Yeah. I was playing really like no minutes my entire senior year, and which made it tough for colleges and stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure that's frustrating. Right?
Yeah. And then same thing in my D3, my last year, similar sort of thing. Just, coaching wasn't fitting well in the system. And, I'm thinking like, how's that going to affect overseas ball and everything? But if anything, like sitting the bench or, coaches who don't believe in you, if anything's just added fuel to the fire, made me work harder. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you say that, because, I think social media kind of throws out there that everybody has this super nice, glamorous road. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, oh, you're just going to be this McDonald's All-American and then go to D1 and kill it. And you're going to go like, they don't understand that it's a lot more stories like yours and even myself. I told you my kind of underdog story, and Jalen Wells is a great example and all that. Like, I just don't think people realize how much there's a lot more of those than what they think, where
I agree.
Everybody has this golden road that takes you, straight there. And even still, even to those, I always try to reiterate, no matter if you go up the mountain quick or you go up the mountain slow, there's still a mountain.
Yeah.
Like, you still have to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
I think we live in a day and age, and again, this is kind of going to be my last question, because we're talking about social media and that content space, which is, again, it's great. It's create avenues. It's create revenue streams for people. Like Simply Basketball exists because of this, overtime basketball, Ball is Life. You again, you have the different venues of basketball content space that can allow people to feed their families with this. You know what I mean? Like, that is great. But, but what I will say is I think there's a misconception that it's either easy or that there's no hard days, no dark days, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what I wanted you to speak on that space. Those days where it was tough for you, those days where, like I said, it was a little dark those days, or, you know, you were going through a hardship and things like that. Can you speak on, you know, maybe what that was, what it felt like, and how, you know, outside of your faith, how were you able to, you know, keep going and keep yourself motivated through it?
Yeah, I would say sometimes those days are still those days. Like, we're still in those days, and, you know, maybe one day I'll look back on these days and think differently. But like where I'm at, I'd say, you know, there's always a struggle of, you know, saying, hey, I love making content, I love this, but it's not really bringing in the setting myself up financially, like maybe a sales job or something I'm not as passionate about. So like there's always just like pulling from different directions. Okay, hey, like this is what I love to do. Like, I'm just going to go all in. And then part of me saying, hey, you know, you got to focus on your future family and future success doing other things. So I would say it's tough, you know, focusing on, you know, setting aside time each day to make content or focus on whatever you're going to focus, whether it's basketball or making content or getting to the next level or just life. But just consistently getting after it, and you might not see the light at the end of the tunnel, but just having faith that it's going to work out no matter what happens, I think is important.
No, I like that, man. I like that a lot. Mike, man, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here, man. Do you have any quick shout outs you want to do before we close out for the rest of the show, or anybody you want to mention?
I know when we're talking about having support.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're talking about having support from family. I didn't mention my fiance McKenna, but she really has been there this whole time, whether it was...
You better mention her. You're going to hear the show, be like, wait a minute, you didn't say me.
She gets the closing recap, but even when it was going to Spain and thinking like, hey, I could be there for another year and she'd be in the U.S., she was supporting it with the content. She's supporting it. She's helping me sometimes when it comes to editing and all that. So having that rock like McKenna has been, you know, probably the biggest thing for me.
All right. And again, if you stay till the end, you are a real one. If you're clipping, listen, and then you get to the end, hey, still appreciate you're a real one. I will just reiterate, just to repeat, I'm going to have links to Mike's social media in the description, so you guys can go check him out, check out his content. Again, do the HBO special if you feel like it. Hit that subscribe and that like button, or the follow if you're listening to the audio side. As always, I will keep trying to do what I can in terms of bringing great guests for you guys, in terms of speaking my piece on my opinions of this game that we all love. You know, hopefully this is still helping everybody. I know I appreciate the DMs. I appreciate, you know, my, like, people coming up to me at basketball tournaments, say, hey man, love your podcast, love this guest. Like, I'm very blessed. Let me just put it like that. I'm very blessed and very fortunate to be able to have this platform and this little room of mine to be able to shed light on a few things. So again, if you're listening, if you're checking this out, take care of yourself, take care of your body, keep working hard, stay on the grind, you know, run your race. I'm sure you'll find your success. And as you can see, we all preaching the same thing, man. It's all just a matter of time and hoping a lot of things align to make moves for yourself. But until then, be safe. Take care of your bodies, right? Work hard. And then and we'll see you next time on next show. We're out. Peace.
Yes, sir.